Next slide. Our ASL interpreters tonight are Aaron and Sandy. The Zoom host will spotlight the interpreter's videos. In general, to pin someone's video in Zoom, you find the person's video in the gallery. In the top right corner of the interpreter's video, you click the ellipses and then click the pin option. This will keep the person's video visible on your screen. Next slide. Denise is our cart captioner today. To access in the meeting controls toolbar, click Show Captions. A tip is to click and drag the captions to move them where you want them in the meeting window. To adjust the caption size, in the meeting controls toolbar next to Show Captions, click the up arrow, then click Caption Settings, and next to font size, you can move the slider to adjust the caption size slider. Next slide.
Oh, I can't see.
None of those?
It probably is, but I can't. It's hard to see it. Focus at the.
Sorry. If you need any help with Zoom or you have a technical question, please use the chat function. Our technical assistant will attempt to troubleshoot your problem and get back to you as soon as possible. Next slide. All right, to go through our agenda for tonight's meeting, we'll begin with an RTAG update, followed by system-wide accessibility updates given by Laura Brailsford, followed by fair engagement updates given by Thomas Johnson. That'll be followed by a system-wide accessibility and fair engagement feedback session. Then we will have the ride updates given by Michelle Styler, followed by a ride feedback session, and then we'll have some closing remarks. Next slide. All right, I am going to quickly give an update on behalf of RTAG. So again, thank you all for joining us today. For those who are joining us for the first time, we welcome you to the Riders Transportation Access Group. We're a community-based advocacy group that advises the MBTA on transportation matters impacting people with disabilities and older adults. I always want to repeat some history for those who are joining us for the first time. In 2002, a group of 11 riders at Boston Center for Independent Living, represented by Greater Boston Legal Services, filed a class action lawsuit against the MBTA called the Joanne Daniels Feingold et al. V. MBTA. The lawsuit led to the Daniels-Feingold Settlement Agreement in 2006, which improved accessibility and reinforced the Americans with Disabilities Act principles at the MBTA. In 2018, the MBTA reaffirmed its commitment to the settlement by entering an amended agreement, clarifying remaining obligations, and establishing a compliance evaluation plan. This agreement also led to the creation of the RTAG, tasked with holding the MBTA accountable for maintaining compliance even after the agreement ends. I just wanted to keep you all informed about some upcoming changes as the Joanne Daniels Feingold settlement is expected to come to a close in December of this year. We are collaboratively working on transitioning out of the case while recognizing that the MBTA has made significant changes. We wish to adopt a community monitoring model, and with no legal component remaining, after December, it will be RTAG's responsibility to track reports provided by the MBTA and evaluate adherence to ADA compliance, among other tasks. While nothing is finalized yet, we cannot comment on specific details at the time. However, this is a community effort involving the RTAG Executive Board, the plaintiff group, Greater Boston Legal Services, BCIL, and system-wide accessibility. And although many details still need to be finalized, we just wanted to keep our members informed that changes are forthcoming. With that in mind, I encourage everyone to continue participating in our advocacy efforts and meetings. Please spread the word, invite others to join, and share their valuable insights and feedback on the accessibility of the MBTA. Thank you all, and I will go to the next slide. I am now going to hand it over to Laura Brailsford to give some updates on system-wide accessibility.
Thanks so much, Kat, and good evening, everyone. It's great to be with you here tonight, as always. I just have a few updates I want to share with you before I introduce one of my colleagues who's gonna share some important information on a major initiative that's recently launched. So folks are aware, we've got a photo on the screen of two folks, one using a weight cane and one of our travel trainers walking up a ramp at one of our subway stations. Next slide, please. All right, so one project we've been updating folks on for the last few months is the Jackson Square accessibility efforts, for which we are quite excited about. Just a reminder that the scope of this overarching project is to construct a brand new redundant elevator and to fully modernize the existing elevator at the station, as well as to raise the platform a little bit to eliminate the vertical gap that's long plagued the station, and to make some other general wayfinding upgrades, and also to construct two areas of emergency rescue assistance. So the great news is that the platform work is virtually complete. So if you travel to Jackson today, you will likely experience a very, very flush transition between the train and platform, which is great. Before this project was underway, there was up to a 1.5 to 2 inch step up into the train, which obviously for many of us posed quite serious challenges. So we are really excited to see these platform upgrades come online. The platform itself is going to be resurfaced later on in the station upgrades effort, but again, the platform has been raised. I know at last month's meeting, a number of folks raised questions about the benches that had been on the Jackson Square platform. We explained at the time that the benches had to be removed by the platform while the platform work was underway. Great news is that 2 of the 3 benches have been reinstated, and that third bench will be positioned as soon as the new elevator comes together. The overall project is 2 years in duration, so we have a ways to go, but this is really a great start. So if you haven't been, check it out. Let us know what you think, particularly for folks who struggle with platform gaps. And we'd love to hear your feedback. And on the screen is an image of the new platform with an orange line train burst on the left side. Slide, please. All right, given that we had a little time in our agenda today, we thought it would be a good opportunity to remind folks about our mobility center, specifically all of the travel training opportunities available to you at the center. So just a reminder for folks who may not be aware, the Mobility Center is a joint undertaking by both the ride and system-wide accessibility. And the vision of the center has really been to be a one-stop shop for folks in terms of learning about accessible travel and sort of signing up for opportunities to support their travel needs. So at the center, you can undertake the ride eligibility determination process You can also meet with a travel trainer and or they can come to you. You can get help with trip planning, reduce fare applications, and as well as technology related training. And on the screen, we've got 2 photos of different riders getting service from some of our awesome mobility center staff. Next slide. So to dive a little bit deeper into the types of travel training we offer through the Mobility Center, there really is a nice spectrum here, and all sorts of options to meet a variety of needs. The first, and the one we talk about most frequently is highly customized one-on-one individual training. This is highly tailored training designed to meet an individual's needs. After an intake process is completed, a travel trainer will work with someone one-on-one to practice taking trips that the customer identifies as a desire, and often takes the course of several sessions and really can run the gamut of bus, subway, commuter rail use. We also offer group trainings. One style is at our emergency training center, where folks can learn how to safely navigate the system and learn more about general accessibility policies. They can also explore some out of service trains and take a trip uh, on one of our red line trains. If you are part of an organization like a council on aging, disability commission, local community organization, we will also provide group trainings on site at your organization. And we also can bring a bus with us to be part of that training discussion. Those trainings are typically an hour, but can be tailored a little bit to unique needs of your organization. And then finally, we offer train the trainer type sessions for staff at agencies. So if you or someone you know works again for a council on aging or other community group that works with older adults or folks with disabilities who rely on the T or want to rely on the T, this may be a great opportunity for you. Next slide. So there's all sorts of ways to get in touch with folks at the Mobility Center. One of the easiest is simply calling their main number at 617-337-2727. That's 711, of course, for folks that rely on TTY. You can also go in person anytime at 1000 Mass Ave in Boston. This brick and mortar location is going to change within the next year. We're planning on moving the center to a brand new MBTA building in Quincy. But for now, we're on Mass Ave in Boston. And there's all sorts of ways online to learn more. The easiest is simply by going to mbta.com/mobility center. Next slide. So, in their opening remarks, Kat mentioned the fact that we are approaching our next public meeting focused on the Daniels-Feingold settlement agreement. And I really just wanted to put in a big plug for this meeting here. The meeting's going to be on Wednesday, December 25th. It will be a hybrid meeting, so many of us will be in person on the second floor at Town Park Plaza. But for folks who would prefer to attend virtually, there will be a Zoom link. And the meeting will start at 1 o'clock and run to 3. This meeting is likely going to be very unique in that at our last meeting with Judge King 6 months ago, he shared the fact that it was his opinion that the MBTA was very, very close to achieving substantial compliance with the original agreement, and that assuming things move forward accordingly, he would likely be announcing that as his formal finding in December. So that obviously has not happened yet, but we expect the judge to have a lot of feedback to share with everybody. As always, these meetings are a great opportunity to hear feedback from you as well, and hear directly from the general manager, myself, and others executives focused on fixed route accessibility. So please definitely join us for this one if you can. It's going to be a notable event. And on the screen is a photo from our last public meeting with the judge. He's seen here speaking at the podium with our general manager looking on. Next slide. All right, and before I turn things over, just a reminder that there are all sorts of resources available to you, and if you want to get in touch with us with questions or with feedback or concerns, we really do want to hear from you. And you can do that by phone by calling our customer support number at 617-222-3200. We've got some great in-person options as well. In addition to the mobility center location I mentioned earlier, the Charlie Service Center is open for business to help people with fare needs, and they're located at 296 Washington Street. And there's a host of online opportunities. MBTA.com/accessibility has a ton of information. I would encourage you to check it out. And if you have feedback or a complaint or questions and you prefer not to use the phone, one great way to do that is by going to our website and clicking on the support link at the top of the screen, and you can fill out a feedback form there. Anything you identify as accessibility in nature will automatically be shared with either our team in system-wide accessibility or the RIDE team, depending on the type of complaint. And we will make sure that you get a thorough response after a full investigation is conducted. All right, so at this point, I would like to turn things over to one of my colleagues, Thomas Johnson. As you may remember at our last RTAG meeting, I mentioned the fact that the MBTA, beginning in December, had started deploying fare engagement officers. The great news is Thomas is here tonight to provide quite a bit more detail than I did on this effort and answer any questions you have. All right,
Awesome.
Thomas, thanks.
Thank you so much, Laura, for that wonderful introduction. I want to first begin by just apologizing. I'm sorry that my video is not working. So just kind of bear with me. But again, I'm here to share with you fair engagement. On this slide here, we just have a picture of one of our fair engagement representatives at a station. He's wearing his blue polo shirt with his yellow name badges and what have you, and cap. And he's just really observing customers coming through on the paid side, making sure they're paying. Let's go to the next slide, please. So what I want to do here is I'd like to begin with just an overview because there's so much going on and a lot of people have had a lot of questions about fair engagement. So I want to just take some time to make sure that everybody is clear on just who we are. We started back in October of 2024 doing a massive educational outreach plan to our riders and ensuring fair compliance. The team is easily identifiable in our blue polo shirts with our yellow fair engagement logos. The team is located at various subway fare gates, as well as eventually will be on board vehicles. So what do we do? We conduct fare checks. We assist riders at the fare vending machines. We answer questions about fare payment. We do a lot of that, and we help support trip planning, accessibility travel with people who need additional assistance, or they have some additional questions about a trip or a location that they're trying to go to. And what I want to make a clear note is we're not going to be present. Fair engagement is not present on every trip, but will appear periodically across the system. Next slide, please. What is the objectives of this team? The fair engagement representatives have focused on the following key responsibilities. And number one is not just it's fair compliance, but it's more importantly, it's education. It's making sure that people understand how to pay their fares. What are the different fare options? We want to make sure that people are real clear on that. We want to make sure we're providing strong customer service assistance because we are finding that people are having a multitude of questions, and our team has gone through extensive training for about a 6-week period before we even release them to the public. And one of the key elements of that training was a de-escalation and conflict management training. So they're really prepared to deal with a lot of situations that they would encounter with our riding population. And finally, emergency preparedness. They've gone through a painstakingly amount of emergency preparation training and how to maneuver out of vehicles. If they're on a vehicle and it becomes immobile or has to be evacuated, all those kinds of things the team has been trained on. Let's go to the next slide. So let's talk a little bit about the deployment. But first, I just like to share on this screen. I have two of my wonderful fair engagement representatives in their uniforms, in their blue polo uniforms. You can see they have a radio, they have a phone to issue their warnings and citations, and they're always wearing their IDs. So that's how you can recognize them. And they're also wearing their baseball caps that also have the fair engagement logo, the yellow logo on it as well. So let's talk about the locations. Right now, the team is deployed at the core central subway stations, and we'll talk about those stations shortly. What is their deployment schedule? They are Monday through Friday, no weekends yet. We're hoping to grow the team. Will be a 7-day operation, but right now it's Monday through Friday. They start work at roughly 6 a.m. in the morning. They work through 6 p.m. And they're deployed in waves. And what do I mean by waves? Right now we have 15 fair engagement reps. We're in the process of backfilling one to bring it back up to 16. And so we have the waves that go from 6 to 2 p.m. and 8 to 4 p.m., 8 a.m. to 4 p.m. And the last wave comes on board from 10 a.m. to 6 p.m. And they rotate between at least 2 stations a day. Let's go to the next slide. So let's talk about the fare checks and what does that really mean? The fair engagement representatives are positioned on the paid side of the fare array. And I want to make sure that people understand that. They're on the paid side of the fare array. And why is that? Because there they can, one, hear the warning sounds. If they hear somebody going through the fare gates, I think people are familiar where we have a strong challenge with curving piggybacking. And what is piggybacking? It's people who pay their fare and then somebody else quickly jumps behind them to go through the gate. This is one of the key things that the fair engagement representatives keep an eye out, a watchful eye out, and immediately approach that person piggybacking and remind them to pay their fare. And normally we've had no issue. People have gone back and they pay their fare. So what happens? We'll give you the opportunity to pay. We allow the rider to go back and pay immediately. And let me again say that all the riders have been compliant. Basically, we will talk about warnings and citations a little bit, but all the riders primarily have been cooperative in terms of going back and paying their fare. But we're also going to ask the rider to understand their situation. Do they,
Got a little bottle.
excuse me?
You can
Uh,
continue.
Okay, I'm sorry. We're also going to ask the rider to understand their situation, because here's where the education piece comes in. Because maybe there's an uncertainty or they need clarity on the fare policies. Maybe we need to talk to them about distinguishing between a hardship case or somebody who's just generally non-compliant. And if somebody is just generally non-compliant, they're not going to go back and pay their fare. We don't want, if they're not willing to take some information about reduced fare payment options, now we're going to issue a warning. And how this goes is, we right now will issue you a warning for failure to comply with our fare structure. And we'll ask you for your ID, and we'll issue you a warning. That's on the first refusal to pay. Now, the next three refusals to pay, if you're caught again for fare evasion, now you're going to be issued a citation. Yes, a citation. This is very new for the organization, and we haven't issued a citation yet, but when we get repeat offenders, that will happen. And on the fourth subsequent citation, that $50 citation will jump to $100. Now, we will allow the rider to continue their trip after receiving the warning or the citation, but if they refuse to pay or provide any information, that right there may result in us asking you to exit the station, because the MBTA is really working hard to crack down on fare evasion. And everybody, there's mechanisms in place right now with our reduced fare payment options for people to have some options to pay at a reduced rate. Let's go to the next slide. So, where are we right now? And when did we begin? Let's talk about the coverage. The fare checks began on September 8th, 2025. I'm going to stop right there for a quick moment and say once again that we initially started going out into our system in early October of 2024. We started on GLX, on what's now referred to as Green Line North, and then we expanded to Back Bay Station. We did a little bit of the downtown stations and core stations, and then we did outreach on all of our light rail transportation, including the Mattapan High Speed Line. So the team has really gotten around. We've just added coverage extended coverage to Kendall MIT Station in Cambridge, and the general manager has confirmed that additional stations will be added in the future. But we want to we're not really telling what those locations are. We're just going to appear. But just so we're clear in the exhibits here, the core station locations, just so we're all clear, are Park Street, Downtown Crossing, State Street, Haymarket, North Station, Government Center, Back Bay, and Kendall MIT. We picked these stations because these are high ridership stations. They're intermodal, where people are transferring from one line to the other, and they're really centrally visible for everybody. Most people who come into the system are coming into the core. And finally, again, we're really continue to maintain that the focus is the education ahead of enforcement. And so I think I just want to really reiterate education and ahead of enforcement. And that is what we had been doing from October of 2024 up to September 8th. Next slide, please. So, what have the results been? Well, before I get into the results again, here I have two more of my fair engagement representatives. One is interacting with a customer on the paid side. Looks like they're probably at Park Street downtown. And you can see the fare gates on the unpaid side. So from a performance standpoint, during the first 2 weeks, initial 2 week period, we actually issued 80 warnings. And because this was new, people were really just going through. We had to pull people aside, and they came with different reasons why they couldn't pay or they didn't pay. But most of them were just really trying to evade paying the fare, and the team issued them warnings. Now, after the initial 2 weeks, people have now quickly become acclimated to our presence, and so there is now a low citation. There's low warnings and citations that are continuing now, and this is a really demonstration that the presence of the fair engagement representatives are really making a difference, and it's strongly encouraging fair compliance without the need for frequent enforcement. So their presence, I'm going to say this again, their presence is making an immediate impact wherever they're being deployed. Feedback that we've been getting from our customers, our riders, they want to see more fair engagement presence in additional stations and locations and expand the coverage times. And really, we would all want to do that. We would all want to see that, but it's a matter of just getting the resources. The next slide, please. So some additional highlights, just so we're clear, the fair engagement representatives, they're MBTA employees. They're not a private, force, or police force or anything. No, they're MBTA employees and proud members of Local 589. Their locations are flexible and subject to change at the request of our leadership, and fair engagement representatives are available to support all districts as needed. In emergencies, fair engagement representatives will follow MBTA protocols and work under the district guidance. Next slide, please. Next slide, please. Okay, I guess that was it. Are there any immediate questions?
Thank you so much, Thomas, and thank you, Laura. So we are going to have our discussion period and feedback session for both Thomas and Laura's segments. For folks who are using Zoom, in the Zoom controls, you can click reactions, then click raise hand. On your keyboard, you can also raise or lower your hand by clicking the Alt and Y key buttons if you're using Windows, and the Option and Y key buttons if you're using Mac OS. And if you're calling in, you can use the following shortcuts: *9 to raise your hand and *6 to unmute. And I see some questions in the chat as well, so I'll alternate between raised hands and chat questions. So I will start with Linda. Feel free to unmute yourself.
Hi. I also put it in the chat. Years ago at the Green Street station, I had just kind of like walked in and was getting ready to add fare to my card.
Yeah.
And the fare evader jumped over the stall completely. Like you got long legs and you just used your entry exit there into the station. They had long legs, so they were able to just pop right over.
Sure.
And recently was a fare evader was kind of loitering around the stalls and then piggyback as soon as I was entering into Jackson Square to take the orange line. So it's like it's kind of like almost like anywhere and everywhere.
Yeah.
Great. Thank you so much for sharing your experiences, Linda.
Thank you.
I am going to go to a chat question. What is the mechanism for paying the fine associated with a citation? What happens if it's not paid?
That's a very good question. And what we were trying to do, but it did not happen. We were trying to link it with like your motor vehicles, Department of Motor Vehicles. That didn't happen. And so to be quite honest with you folks, there is not a strong enforcement right now in place to link it to something. Again, we were exploring, trying to work with the registry. You can't compromise on voter rights, but we were really trying to figure out a way. And there are people that are still working on that, but right now there is no true enforcement mechanism.
Thank you, Thomas. Nora, you can unmute yourself.
I'm actually asking a similar question to the last question I was going to ask about enforcement mechanisms, and thank you for answering it.
Sure.
And let me just tell you that you need to have an enforcement mechanism.
Absolutely.
Probably the most instructive analogy that I can come up with is dog licensing in the city of Boston. We all know that there are probably tens, if not hundreds of thousands of dogs in Boston. And the dog licensing is they're lucky if they're in the 4 digits because there is no enforcement mechanism. There are fines, but those fines just disappear into thin air once they're issued. They're unenforceable. And as soon as it gets out that this is unenforceable, game over.
I hear you clearly. I wish I could come back and give you something substantive, but you are correct with that, drawing that kind of a conclusion. And we are all very much conscious of it and concerned about it. But this has to really go to a much higher level than me. And I'm not making an excuse, but that is a critical component that's not in place.
Thank you, Nora, for your question. Thank you, Thomas. I am going to another chat question. Valerie shares, deploy sounds militaristic. How are refusals to pay/leave the station addressed?
We haven't had to exit anybody, but what we will do if something happens, we are working in close contact with transit police. And if we have to notify, each of the fair engagement representative is equipped with both a radio that goes right to our OCC dispatch, and transit police knows our schedule, and they have officers that are always going to be in the vicinity, if not in the immediate station location. We can also gain some assistance from station officials, but primarily this is where transit comes in. Transit police come in to assist if that is needed. And then we will reach out through our radios to our operation control center, and they'll notify transit immediately.
Thank you, Thomas. We had a request from a participant asking if we could remove the slides so that attendees could be seen. Rob, are you able to do that? Thank you. Tom, you can go ahead and unmute yourself.
Hi, this is Tom Gilbert, RTAG member. Thomas,
Sure.
I like to basically elaborate on what Linda had first said and what Nora had just said. And I try to try to warn about this more than a couple of years ago that fare evasion was a big problem on the system.
Absolutely.
And from what Linda was saying back when she said, no, not only are people jumping over the fare gates, but they're also, again, piggybacking. Like I've been piggybacked a few times. I've actually had somebody kind of punch me softly in the back of my back, like move, 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 like they're piggybacking me at Ashmont. That's happened to me. And then I also found out that not only are people doing that, but they also take their coat and they put it in front of the gate. So the coat makes it, the gate thinks that it's somebody coming out. So they mistake the coat for somebody coming out. Then they go in. And then on the wheelchair accessible gate, as people are going out, people are darting right in. That happens at Davis Square all the time. And I'm also wondering how are we going to enforce things? Because getting back to transit police, I understand that, maybe I'm wrong, but I understand that transit police is down to like 166 personnel now to patrol the system. in the state legislature saying that they have to patrol 175 towns and cities.
Cities and towns, yeah.
That doesn't make sense to me. How do you like? That's just running your force thin and everything. It doesn't make
Yeah.
sense.
I can't speak to the deployment of our transit police, but you are correct in terms of their size. I don't know the immediate size, but what I can tell you is this. We have had to contact them a couple of times because of people just gotten injured in the station, what have you. And our teams obviously were there when it occurred. And so they were there, you know, in my opinion, in a rapid time of about 5 6 minutes. They got there, and that for TPD was pretty quick. But you know, one of the things that we're hearing, because I hear people talking about various stations, everything that you guys are sharing about the piggybacking, about throwing the coat over the gate, about people going through the accessibility gate, all those things, I watch them myself. And like if I'm in the station, I'm a kind of a big guy. And so I'll turn around, I'll pull up my ID because I always wear it around my neck. I say, look, look, sir, I work for the MBTA. Please pay your fare. And people are, oh, no, no, they'll stop and they'll go back and pay their fare. Okay, I'm one person, I'm doing that. That's great. But um, in order to really make this work, as I said earlier during my presentation, excuse me, wherever the team has been deployed, we have seen a drop, we've seen an increase, excuse me, in fare compliance. But I also said that the team is right now only funded for 16 positions, plus a superintendent and a supervisor. That limits our ability. And let me share with you that each day I get the complaints that you guys are sharing with me right now. They come to all of us. You know, at Forest Hill Station, at Orient Heights Station, at Ashmont Station. And the challenge is we're a team of 16 funded slots rotating through 8 or 9 stations right now. And so we can only do so much. What has to happen, what has to happen is the team has to be allowed to grow to the levels that we were initially thought we were going to be deployed at, which is a much larger number, not hundreds and hundreds, but it's a much larger number than 16. And so in this upcoming budget process, operating budget process, we're going to be asking to rebuild the budget to bring on more fair engagement representatives as well as supervisors and supervisory staff and a few other back office personnel. We have had solid results everywhere we've gone. And so hopefully the case can be made to grow fair engagement here at the MBTA.
Great. Thank you, Tom and Thomas. I'm going to go to a chat question from Abby. Is there any way to offer point of sale type fine payment with credit card rather than handing the person a paper ticket?
No, not right now. The device, that's another technical question. But the device that we're currently using, that is that's its capability. We have to get your information and we have to print you out a paper ticket. The technology is a challenge. In order for us to really board the light rail vehicles as we were originally planned, the device that we're going to be using for that is still being technically worked on. And it is not ready for what I like to say prime time. Hopefully, we will see it on debut in early 2026. But right now, the devices that we have to use are limited to just paper copies of tickets.
Okay. Thank you, Abby and Thomas. Lee, you can go ahead and unmute yourself.
Hi, my question is for Thomas Johnson. My name is Lee Dwyer. I'm a student journalist from Boston University. And I'm curious because earlier you mentioned that you also train the fair engagement officers to help with any accessibility measures or questions that riders may have. And so I was wondering, do you know how much engagement that they're doing as far as accessibility goes? Or how much these fair enforcement employees are able to disperse information on accessibility on the MBTA to elder passengers?
I think that when we first started and we were going and we were actually setting up at locations on throughout light rail where we were going, we were doing a lot of that. We were even trying to get some literature that we can excuse me, that we can hand out in terms of showing people one, the accessibility to the center over on Washington Street, as well as this is what accessibility center that I had a chance to visit too over on Mass Ave. But at this point now, the information they're doing now is obviously if somebody's coming in and they don't have the proper credentials, they are trained to tell them how to get them, and they most likely are not going to cite them if they're going to have a conversation, obviously, and ensure that they'll know how to access reduced fare options. But they don't have the bandwidth now to carry additional brochures or flyers or handouts because of all the other types of equipment they're now having now that we're in the enforcement phase. The educational phase went, as I said, from October of 2024 through the September 4th of this year. And during that entire period, that kind of thing was done. And we actually did a special outreach at the universities as well, just before we transitioned at both BU, Northeastern, and Tufts, because we know a lot of the college students tend to kind of hop on our vehicles, and we were trying to do some focused education while we had a chance to prior to the enforcement phase commencing on September 8th.
And Thomas, if I can just piggyback on your response there, Lee. So the training that the fair engagement folks get on accessibility and being aware of disability related considerations was developed in conjunction with our team in system-wide accessibility. We have a role in developing trainings for all frontline operators. And a lot of our learnings over the year made their way into the fair engagement reps training. One thing for everyone's awareness that all MBTA frontline employees are responsible for assisting folks with reasonable requests.
That's right.
If they find themselves in the position where they're not able to provide that assistance, which will often be the case with fair engagement reps, the policy is really clear that they need to connect with our dispatch, OCC dispatchers to arrange for another employee to be sent to provide assistance. So that policy is covered in depth, along with all sorts of general disability awareness around, working with folks with non-apparent disabilities and station accessibility features that they need to be aware of. So, they do come in with a good grounding of accessibility at the team.
And just to piggyback one other thing, we've had to escort passengers, riders over to our elevators because when they came into the stations, we had escalators there. And one of the key things they focus on is they see anybody who looks even remotely like they may need assistance, they'll go to them and encourage them to take the elevator down.
Thank you, Thomas and Laura. Just being conscious of time, I'm going to ask Rob to bring back up the slides so we can move on to the ride portion. Thomas, there are some additional questions in the chat if you want to take a look. And for anyone who didn't get to ask a question to either Laura or Thomas, feel free to put it in the chat or reach out to me tomorrow and we'll make sure to get those questions answered.
You have this, Cap?
Yes, perfect. Yeah, we can go to the next slide. All right, it is time for me to hand it over to Michelle to give updates regarding the ride.
Thank you, Kat, and nice presentations. So I think given that all participants here are not ride customers, I thought it would be helpful to provide a little bit of background about the MBTA's paratransit service. I'm going to touch briefly on ride structure, provide some stats, and some details about the FTA guidelines for paratransit service. If we go to the next slide. Thank you. So the RIDE's Office for Transportation Access, we refer to it as OTA, has 22 team members. It's been increased from 14 people in 2022. And our plan is to continue staffing until we achieve 27 employees, including contracted staff. We're responsible for over 1,000 employees. I will share that part of the reason we were looking to expand the team was to build out a customer experience and engagement team and to enhance our contract oversight with contract administrators. We oversee 10 major contracts, including the Mobility Center, RTAG, which is our operations center, 2 dedicated service providers. You often hear us refer to them as We Drive You and Veterans. 3 non-dedicated service providers, and our transportation management software contract, which is SPARE. Additionally, the MBTA actually recently purchased a property at 200 Newport Avenue in Quincy. That was back in 2024. It provided us an opportunity to consolidate 2 ride contracts in one location, that being RTAG and the Mobility Center. RTAG was moved in late April, and that was while we were planning for a software launch. And Mobility Center, our plan is sometime mid-2026, and that requires a significant build out that we're working internally with our capital team and system-wide accessibility. Ultimately, we believe that we will achieve significant lease cost savings, and it will allow us to bid contracts more competitively and offer smoother contract transitions. Go to the next slide. Some quick ride statistics. This is for FY25. We delivered 1.8 million trips. That's both dedicated and non-dedicated service. We have 30,000 customers. We addressed just over 1 million phone calls. Our dedicated service providers employ 670 drivers and operate 700 ride-owned vehicles or MBTA-owned vehicles. And we have enrolled 16,000 ride customers in senior and reduced fare or income eligible reduced fare since go live in September of 2024. If we go to the next slide. So this is specific to paratransit service. The ride is the ADA's mandated mode of transportation for people with disabilities who cannot use fixed route and subway service due to a disability. We provide personalized reservation-based door-to-door service to 30,000 customers. Specific FTA requirements are that our service is comparable to fixed route. This includes operating hours, service area, fares, and trip duration. If we go to the next slide, please. So ride service. Customers apply for eligibility and are provided free ride transportation to an in-person interview at the Mobility Center. Trained professionals evaluate and assess applicants' functional ability to utilize fixed route service. Additional information is also captured both at eligibility and recertification, including mobility equipment, service animals, and whether a customer travels with a personal care attendant. This process is consistent with FTA guidance and industry best practices. At this time, staff will also ensure customers have a full understanding of the ride service. They will apprise customers of our suite of additional services, including trip planning, reduced fare application assistance, technology training, and travel training. Another note for those that are not familiar with ride service, these trips are reservation based. They must be booked 1 to 5 days in advance. and confirmations are sent to customers of the trip. And as you will hear with the new software, there are more notifications and they can be customized. If we go to the next slide, please. So regarding ride performance, our on-time performance for September was 97%. And as you can see here, we track by both arrive by drop-off and arrive by pickup. The whole time for September was 2 minutes and 26 seconds. And that's slightly above our goal of 2 minutes. But this was also expected given that we anticipated an increase in call volume and an increase in call handle time while our staff was learning the new software. Happy to share that we've seen a level off. October is now tracking below 1 minute. Also worth sharing here that there is a new mechanism through which some limited feedback can be provided through the mobile app or the web portal, and that's a thumbs up rating. And I can share that we've received year to date 4,029 trips rated, and 3,755 of them were thumbs up. We go to the next slide, please. So this information on this slide is about the mobile app. I can share that we've had over 3,000 downloads of the mobile application, and we've seen nearly 23,000 bookings via the mobile app and the web portal combined. We go to the next slide. I also think this is a great opportunity to speak to you about customer communications. The ride reaches out to customers and uses a number of different channels. They may include mailers and flyers, emails, and seat drops. We also conduct continuous customer outreach and research. And this includes presenting and answering questions at community events, conducting customer interviews and surveys, analyzing customer feedback. Every major policy decision, procurement, or initiative is discussed with customers directly for feedback and input. And also worth sharing here that we work collaboratively with the RTAG subcommittee on all of these items here. Yes, that's correct. I'd like to share also that we're working on developing a formal mechanism for customers that are interested in participating to reach out to us. But if you are interested in working with us to provide feedback, please contact customer service to express interest and we will add you to our list. If we go to the next slide. So one of the things we did here, which I see hands are raised already. I'll get to the end and happy to open to questions. One of the things that we're doing here with our team is we're tracking feedback, and we've developed some frequently asked questions and answers that we thought would be helpful, and we'll be certain to share this document with the participants here. So first off, and bear with me as I read through these, I'll try and do it quickly, but why did GPS send the driver away from where I was going? And this is really related to what we're hearing from feedback on the spare software. And the response is our system builds an efficient schedule for thousands of trips each day. Sometimes that means going a bit out of your way to ensure another customer is picked up or dropped off on time. If you are ever on a trip where the routing seems strange, please report it to customer support and we will investigate. The next question here is, why would a non-ride vehicle come pick me up? The ride uses a non-dedicated service provider, Userve, to provide ADA level paratransit trips. While the vehicles may look different from ride vans and sedans, the drivers receive the same training and provide the same door-to-door service. And then a note that customers who have opted into the Ride Flex may have their trips shifted to their selected provider. The next question is, how do I get my trips? Sorry, the comments are popping up. How do I get my trips shifted to Uber and Lyft? And that really is determined by track based on the capacity of the ride's fleet. Trips cannot be shifted upon request. If we go to the next slide, please. This is a common question that we hear, which is how do I get more ride flex trips? Customer trip caps are based on recent usage of the ride at the time of application. The program and trip taking behavior is monitored, and trip caps are reassessed twice a year by the program administrator. So these controls are necessary to ensure that the program remains sustainable. There are costs associated with the program. The majority of RideFlex customers do not meet their trip cap, and I believe we have about 12.5% of customers do reach the cap, but the majority don't. The next question, and I alluded to this a bit earlier, which is why do I have to come in person for my eligibility appointment? And I spoke to some of this. We do have trained personnel on the team to evaluate customers' needs and assess their functional ability. This is based upon best practices. It's also an opportunity to gather additional information about mobility devices and customer needs, and also to share additional information about the fixed route and whether situations have changed or there are ongoing initiatives or about training availability that we can offer to customers. Lastly, the ride is a complicated service and it's nuanced. And I think it's really important that we connect with ride customers, particularly new ride customers and family members, to explain the service to them. If we go to the next slide. Thank you. Can I reschedule my ride trip if something comes up outside of my control? We have heard from customers. In particular, we hear about customers at the airport. And what I want to share is, unfortunately, the ride cannot provide on-demand or same-day service. We are not equipped to do that now. We understand that things come up. And we do have the Ride Flex program that helps bridge that gap between flexibility and need, depending on what customers' needs are. There is a call when ready option. It may be available for trips other than the first trip of the day. And the idea is we really don't want to see somebody stranded that we've delivered to a location, but there really isn't a guarantee that these requests can be fulfilled. Customers can call TRAC to request this option when unexpected delays come up after having already taken the ride somewhere. TRAC will assess capacity and customers may be picked up when a vehicle becomes available. And it's important to understand, again, for the benefit of people that may not be ride customers, how we build our service and how we schedule. And the majority of these vehicles and drivers are already allocated to trips. So it's really a matter of availability. Let's see, sorry, let me suppress that. Another question would be, how long will I be on the vehicle? The ride provides comparable service to fixed route. When we talk about fixed route, we're referring to subway, buses, and trolleys. And it's shared ride transportation. And this may take longer than driving directly. So I know customers are sometimes frustrated, but it is a shared ride service and customers may be picked up or dropped off along the route. If you feel that the trip didn't operate efficiently, please share that feedback. But the idea is you may be on the vehicle for up to the amount of time it would take to make the trip on fixed route, plus 20 minutes to allow for other customers to get on and off the vehicle. We go to the next slide. I wanted to share with you regarding the spare launch. Some of what we're doing. So we refer to it as continuous monitoring and performance indicators. We are looking at all types of performance, and there are new tools to monitor service and perform oversight, particularly with dispatch, which is nice. We're monitoring customer feedback in a number of ways that I shared earlier, and we're looking at those complaints. So again, I would urge you, if you have concerns, and I see a lot of hands going up, I'm creeping up on the back end of the presentation, but I would urge you to be certain that you submit a complaint. So presently, our on-time performance has been very high, and it ranges between 95 to 99% since September 4th. Launch was August 30th, and we had a couple days to settle in and make some adjustments. Back to what outreach we're doing, I can share with you we have communicated early and often to our customers in a proactive fashion. We have followed up for the first several weeks with phone calls to customers who submitted complaints. We really want to understand what you're experiencing and bring that feedback to the software provider and the developers to see what adjustments we can make. Interviews with customers, including online portal use and use of the mobile app. So worth sharing here, and I mentioned it a couple of times, but we are making adjustments, and it's not simply based on customer feedback, which is incredibly important, but also in driver feedback, dispatcher feedback, reservationist feedback, and we have made some adjustments already, and we've seen improvements. If we go to the next slide. Here's some of the feedback that we have thus far about Spare. So 71% of surveyed customers are somewhat or extremely satisfied with their experience using the online booking portal. 82% of surveyed customers are somewhat or extremely satisfied with their experience using the mobile application. 69% of surveyed customers found the online booking portal somewhat or extremely easy to use. 81% of surveyed customers found the mobile application somewhat or extremely easy to use. 88% of surveyed customers are able to use the online booking portal and/or the mobile application to do what they want to do some or all of the time. If we go to the next slide, please. Are we able to advance the slide? Thank you. And here's some additional feedback that we have about Spare. So the customers that weren't satisfied or didn't find the tools easy to use reported general challenges with booking, including understanding booking time, windows, and specifying locations. Some issues changing notification preferences, challenges or bugs with the vehicle tracking, inability to opt out of having trips shifted to Ride Flex via web and portal app. Actions that we have taken based upon this feedback are the Mobility Center has begun rider app trainings. Many of these topics, which is applicable to both online and mobile app, are being addressed. The RIDE team is collecting reported bugs, issues, and requests and sharing these with Spare along with suggested changes and improvements. If we go to the next slide. There's an image here, two images of a phone displaying the mobile app. We have a listing of mobile application training, and we can share that information about the dates and times and locations, but they are a mix of both virtual and on-site training. And this is to answer customer questions and focus on how to use that mobile app and web portal. If we go to the next slide, please. I wanted to take a moment to discuss the baggage policy and share with you that based on feedback and complaints that are submitted, it seems that there were people that misunderstood the policy. What we were actually looking to do was clarify that there has been no change to the amount of baggage or belongings customers can bring onto the vehicles. To reinforce that customers can bring carts, but they're asked to empty them and collapse them, and that has been a long existing policy. The change is simply that drivers are no longer going to carry baggage or belongings for customers from the door to the vehicle. And we have produced some clarification documents that have Q&As and explain to you what we considered when evaluating the policy and thoughts about making that change. And I would ask you, if you have concerns, please to submit them via the customer support portal. If we go to the next slide. So it's important here that I really want to emphasize that we are listening. And we're looking and always looking for additional ways to engage with our customers, which is why you're hearing about surveys and follow-up phone calls. I ask for your patience. We are tracking customer complaints and feedback. Separately, worth sharing that through the last few weeks of the implementation, we were reporting out to RTAG subcommittee members on a weekly basis, and we engage with them regularly. And we do act on feedback. I would share again, just reinforce that we're looking for opportunities to set up listening sessions or customer forums specific to ride customers, recognizing that this is a shared meeting with system-wide accessibility and others that are imparting information to you, that we're looking to explore additional ways that we can gather your feedback and answer customer questions, but really would like to encourage people to be certain to submit via the customer support system, whether it's by phone or email. We are looking, we're tracking, we're trending, we're doing targeted communications based on that feedback. And at this point, I see an awful lot of hands raised. So I think I'm going to end here and look to answer some questions. But again, I ask that if there's specific individual customer complaints, that you allow us to address them via the customer support channel. And the important thing is, again, that we document them, we track them, we trend them, and that we are able to address systemic issues here in this venue. But again, I'm done talking. Let's open up.
Rob, can we go to the next slide? Great. So again, just as a reminder, in the Zoom controls, you can click reactions, then raise hand. On your keyboard, you can click the Alt and Y key buttons on Windows software and Option and Y key buttons on Mac OS. And if you're calling in, you can click *9 to raise your hand and *6 to unmute. There are quite a few of you, so I want to kindly ask folks if they can keep their feedback to 1 to 2 minutes. That way we can get through as many people as possible. That would be really wonderful. I will start with raised hands and I'll alternate again with chat questions. So Vinod, you can unmute yourself.
Hi. Good evening, everybody.
Good evening.
Well, I know MBTA is trying to do a good job for they did a nice job creating a new app where people can book the trips and few more information about the one. And though I just downloaded in a couple of days this app, well, there are few things which need to be settled in the app, but I don't want to go into that much detail because just new one. My main problem happened with the new things which you have changed some policies. And one policy I know, the ride is door to door, and I'm talking from the point of view of blind and visually impaired people. So I was going to the hospital, and the driver dropped me just at the entrance of the hospital. He went with me. He said, as per the policy now, we cannot take you in. We can take you only to the door. And I just wanted him to take me to the help desk or the front desk. And this is going to cause a lot of problems, especially with the visually impaired and blind people. And I think this need to be reconsidered. I know if it is a house or other types of home buildings or something, well, door dropping is okay. But when going to the hospital or some offices, or say if I want to go to the South Station, and I used to go to the MBTA, that's the help center inside and if they drop me outside the South Station, I will be lost. I will not go, and I cannot go anywhere. So this is a very important thing which has to be considered and given a look, what to do in such cases.
Vinod, thank you. Am I hearing you correctly? Are you saying that the driver did not walk you to the door?
Driver told me, as per the policy, they are supposed to drop you only at the door, and inside you have to go yourself inside. And he said it is not possible for them to take you because we have been with the new policy, we cannot take you inside.
The driver, I don't think that that's a new policy. The driver escorts you to the door.
Yes, to the door, but not
Yes, that's
like I'm going to the hospital. So
right.
at the entrance to the hospital door, that's where he said, and then if they leave me there, I cannot find, because the help desk to the front desk is quite away, and I do not know how to reach that. Once he handed over to me the front desk, then he can go and I can manage the things after that. And then similarly, when he's coming back to pick up, if they are going to say, and they say, I read somewhere that you have to come to the door. So we cannot come to the door. We were sitting and outside, the weather conditions are so, and then I cannot see the driver has come or not come, and the weather is bad, snow is there, rain is there. So we sit at the lobby only, and the driver normally, that is what was policy. We never had that problem before, but now I just want to check what is the real policy, and to reconsider the policy, especially with the people like who cannot see and other things.
Vinod, we did not change that policy. The policy has always been that they will walk you to an exterior door.
I think, Michelle, the concern I think that he wants the ride to review is that not for houses or personal places, but for public places where folks need to enter a building like a hospital and make it to like a front desk or a help desk.
Mm-hmm.
What happens in that waiting period where the driver drops off the rider at the door, which is the current policy, which he is acknowledging and hasn't changed.
Okay.
Then what happens to the person that gets dropped off at the door but then has no guidance to get to the help desk or in this public place? So he's just asking you to reconsider that.
Thank you, Kat. I appreciate that. When I heard Vinod initially say about changes in policy, I thought he was indicating that he believed that there had been a change. I hear that you're asking for a change in policy, and it's duly noted. I appreciate your feedback, Vinod, and understand that that's challenging, and would also like to just share with you that you can travel with a PCA, and a PCA would travel for free with you.
Thank you, Vinod, for sharing your concerns. Thank you, Michelle. I'm going to transition to a chat. Donna shares, when I first downloaded the Spare Ride app, I could see the vehicle on its way until it arrived at my location. But in the past week, it stopped. I no longer see the vehicle in the app. Why?
We can absolutely have someone follow up with you. And just worth sharing that we do have some training sessions if you have any other questions about the mobile app. But it sounds like it could be buggy, and we can have a team member follow up. That was the vehicle tracking?
Yes.
On the mobile app. Okay, thank you.
Valerie, you're next.
Thank you. I'm concerned about the GPS, which has been very troubling, and I'm surprised that we only saw the positive responses, but did not get a percentage of complaints listed in the PowerPoint. The needs of disabled and elderly users of rideshare include accessible vehicles, assistance with boarding and alighting, reliable and predictable schedules, and communication support. This baggage policy is not a statewide policy where other paratransit services outside of the MBTA still assist their clients with packages and bags. I'm not quite sure how many elderly people were communicated with regarding the bagging, but to understand disabled needs and elderly needs, I think there needs to be more detailed research into this bag policy. And also the spare program, which is not only frustrating for the clients of the ride, but also for schedulers, dispatchers, and drivers. A little more research, a little more understanding, and those who do not walk in our shoes do not understand the needs that we have. Thank you.
Thank you, Valerie.
Thank you, Valerie. What I will share is that we gather feedback from schedulers, dispatchers, and drivers, that there was extensive testing with drivers, and we engaged in regular discussions with drivers about concerns and have addressed many of them. I appreciate you advocating on their behalf, but they do have direct access to us and the spare team. As a matter of fact, that there are spare team members that sit in track right now, working with them on any concerns with respect to the modified baggage policy. Valerie, I think we spoke yesterday at Mass Senior Action. Valerie, was that you?
Yes, that was.
Okay, I can share additional information that was sent to Mass Senior Action about clarification on the policy and what the options are. You can still board with bags. You can use the lift, and you can store the bags in your personal space. So I just wanted to be certain that I shared that with you. You can also travel with a PCA that can assist or a guest that can assist. And then with respect to spare, can I ask you, did you submit a complaint through customer support about the issue that you experienced?
Several.
Okay. All right. We'll be certain to take care of that. And let's see if I have a team member here. Okay. Actually, rather than dig too long, I can share with you, with the team here, as well as Valerie, what I had told you yesterday, is that there is a mechanism for drivers to report experiences with customers, that they're supposed to report that into dispatch and to their supervisors so we can make adjustments. And given that you reported the concern, we will take a look at that to see. We actually did pretty extensive testing on GPS, and I think AJ had mentioned before that we recognize that the mapping and the addresses were actually more accurate with the new spare system, but that there would potentially be some disconnects, and we're looking to address them quickly. I'm sorry that your issue hasn't been resolved, but we will certainly take a look at it.
Thanks,
you.
Valerie. Thank you, Michelle. I'm going to transition back to the chat. Sandy shares, since Spare was implemented, texting ETA when waiting for an upcoming trip results in odd replies such as, I do not understand you. You have no immediate trips. Will the ability to get an ETA by text become an available function again?
No, that text ETA option was a solution that we built out with the old software. But there are additional tools for you to track your vehicle with the mobile application. And if you'd like to sign up for some of that training, we'd be happy to do that. Or you could contact the mobility center. But there are additional tools for you to track your vehicle.
Thanks, Michelle. I'm going to skip out of order just briefly, but I'm going to call on Michael before I continue with the rest of the raised hands.
Thank you. Can you see me and hear me?
Yes.
Yes.
All right. So let me just briefly say that I'm very active, and without ride bikes, I couldn't do what I do. So I'm very, in general, happy. But I'm going to give you some feedback. I'm sorry it's negative, but I'm sure you want to know. I think that the companies that contract with, the MBTA or with Lyft or Uber, there are several major companies who have 10 or more minivans, and they're not carrying their weight as far as I can tell. I think they should have adequate number of minivans, invest in their companies, upgrade them, more drivers, and I think they should be available during the MBTA hours. And as far as I can tell, they're not. I also think they cherry pick rides and focus on Boston and Cambridge to the detriment of the suburbs. Um, I know the owners personally, and I'm not sure what the contracts say, but I think they need to be really reviewed and beefed up to support people with disabilities better. I'll just give you some examples. I have been left at night after a restaurant in the suburbs or in Boston and not being able to get a ride back home to Lexington. I've been using the ride for many years, first the bus, then ride flex. And my wife broke her leg. I accompanied her to Mass General. I could not get a ride at 10 p.m. back to the suburbs. It goes on and on. I live in Lexington. Most of my PT and pharmacy and medical appointments are in the center. And countless times, I have gotten a ride to the center, can't get one back. I have to ride in my power wheelchair over 2 miles on the street because the sidewalks are in bad condition. With my flashes on, it's very dangerous. I've done that dozens of times. But the worst one I have ever heard was recently, within the last month or so, and a rider was left at the Kowloon restaurant in, I think it's in Saugus, and could not hail a ride back after dinner. Spent the night in the parking lot until it opened again in the morning, and he was able to hail a ride. It's just something is wrong, and I think in particular the contracts and holding the owners of the company accountable is the place to begin.
Michael, thank you. And first off, I'm sorry about these experiences. We know we can do better. We've acknowledged we can do better. We've hired a contract administrator to support we refer to it as non-dedicated service providers, which is a major step forward. On top of that, we're in the middle of a new RFP for providers that Sorry, the comments keep popping up in front of me here. So we're in the middle of re-procuring the contract for our non-dedicated service providers. And we've incorporated a lot of lessons learned, additional language, more stringent requirements, reporting, penalties for failure to comply. It's pretty robust, and I can share with you the technical evaluation committee for these NDSPs. We have a member of the system-wide accessibility team on our panel, and we also have an RTAG representative on the panel. And I believe at this point we met last week, we met again this week to review the potential bidders. And I can't disclose more than that other than to tell you we take this very seriously. And we know we can improve those contracts, and we have written more stronger language and requirements there, including penalties. You're mute, Michael.
Michael, I'll let you respond quickly and then I'll move on to the next
Quickly,
person.
one idea I've had that might help. And like, for example, if I were to be a contractor and buy 10 vans and hire people, if I could pick up people, riders that weren't disabled, then I would probably make more money, so that when there's no disabled rider that is calling in, why can't they pick up another fare through Lyft or Uber to supplement their downtime? Also, the drivers seem to not want to work on the weekends. So that's a big issue. But anyway, I'm done. Thank
No,
you.
I thank you, Michael. When we were talking, when I mentioned earlier about systemic issues, this is important to us to get it right, which is why we've put a lot of effort into building out a technical evaluation team that represents our customer base of industry experts, but there are specific requirements for waves. And again, I could go through a whole host of things. I was scanning here to see if David Hatch is on the call, but I really ran through that there's a lot to consider based on prior performance, and we have worked to tighten up all of that language. And our expectation is significantly improved service. Yes,
Thank you, Michael.
you're welcome.
and
I'm happy to
Michelle.
share that with you.
Naomi, I was just going to read some of your chats, but since your hand is raised next, I will just hand it over to you.
Yeah, hi. So I think my general comment is overall I've been loving Spare, the extra information you get in terms of being able to track when your vehicle's getting close, and also when you've been picked up, you can see the route you're going to be taking. What I've been noticing is that since we switched to Spare, for the same trips that I've been taking for the last several years, the pickup times are generally 20 to 30 minutes earlier. So when you say your on-time performance is whatever it was, 90%, it's, to me, that's not a fair statistic, because I'm getting dropped off an hour early for an appointment. And what's even more often frustrating is when I'm picked up, we drive 20 minutes in the opposite direction. 40 minutes later, we drive back past the end of my street, and then I get dropped off. And this has happened multiple times where I spend up to 40 minutes on the van, moving farther away rather than closer to my home. Now, I know it's a shared van service, but we're meant to expect to have pickups and drop-offs that are generally going in the same direction, not the opposite direction. Now, with the previous system and the drivers got the whole manifest for the day, they would often use their own judgment and be like, oh, I'm just going to drop you first because this other person's going in the opposite direction and we're driving right past your house or something like that. And my impression from the drivers is, first of all, they're no longer given more than the next pickup or drop off. They don't have that longer manifest, but also they're not really empowered to make any of those kind of judgment calls that they used to make. And for me as a passenger, driving past the end of my street 4 times before I start heading to where I'm going is incredibly frustrating. And it's also meaning I'm having to pay my PCA for extra hours in the morning because I'm getting picked up 20 to 30 minutes earlier than I'm used to and before the hours that we have her contracted for. So I'm, having to call her in early, which is an additional cost to me. So I would just like the drivers be empowered and made aware that they are allowed to use their judgment for pickups and drop-offs, if nothing else.
Thank you, Naomi, for sharing your concern. There's some additional information, and this makes me think that we should be taking down names and numbers for additional spare feedback. It said that we're maintaining a list of customers that we can engage with for feedback. So to me, I'm hearing 2 things. One of them is a matter of how efficient the scheduling is. And also, it sounds like drivers are sharing their concerns with you as well. The initial software, the software adept that you heard from that was here before Spare, all of the trips would be bundled the evening before. And a schedule would be shared that same day. That became problematic because of the high volume of cancellations, no-shows, and driver call-outs. And what happened was we had trouble bulking or batching schedules together for drivers. And often, what may have been a positive experience for some, which is a single driver is sent out with the old system to address some challenges. The idea is that we're batching more efficiently, real-time optimization, similar to an Uber and Lyft situation, which is why the drivers aren't given insight into their next 6 or 8 trips because they're subject to change depending on what happens same day. And that could be traffic. That could be somebody has a flat tire. It could be that there was a trip or fall that safety had to report out. So there are a number of reasons why we can't share that information. But separately, I'm also hearing that you feel that there's been some inefficient scheduling, and I'm hearing about early pickups. And I can share with you, we're taking a very close look at that. We are monitoring customer complaints, and we're taking a look at thank you, AJ. AJ is taking a lot of notes. But we're taking a look at how we can improve how those trips are built and how we deliver customers. So we are working with Spare, looking at the data and seeing if there is room for improvement because we are getting some concerns shared with us about potentially inefficient scheduling. But the system works differently, and that's why the drivers don't have insight, and that's why the drivers really aren't empowered to take an alternate route because another trip could be pushed to them. So they're asked to wait. But based upon driver feedback, we are giving them a little bit more insight into what their next trip looks like. They just need to be aware that it is potentially subject to change. Appreciate your feedback, and something here tells me we should have a spare session to discuss spare policies, spare feedback. And I had mentioned earlier that our team is looking at different ways we can get additional feedback, and that was valuable. I appreciate that.
Thank you.
Thank you, Naomi. Thank you, Michelle. I'm going to share a chat message from Sandy. Please continue Rider app trainings. It has been the only way to get assistance with systematic software problems, as my phone calls have unfortunately not been returned. And Alan, you can go ahead and unmute yourself.
Hello, can you hear me?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay, good. I wanted to flag a couple concerns that had come up to me. So this was the other day, I think it was last Friday. I was standing on the curb waiting for my vehicle, and it's a large, it's a college campus, so there's several different buildings. So the driver couldn't find me, and I left a detailed note for the driver, as I always do. However, when I got in the vehicle, the operator told me that they couldn't see the pickup notes that the customers left for them. And this is, it's dark out, it's cold out, we're coming up on winter, so there's gonna be snow on the sidewalk. So I just wanted to bring that to the team's attention, just to make you aware of that. Also, secondly, I did want to seek clarity on your policy on call when ready trips. Do they have to be on the same day? For example, I'm flying, for example, if I have a flight out of Logan that, I take the ride to the airport. When I come home, can I schedule a call when ready for trip for that, even if it's not, if it's technically my first trip of the day?
That is a no, Alan. So I
Okay.
can share with you the idea of call when ready was really so not to strand a customer. If perhaps earlier in the day we delivered somebody late to an appointment and they needed additional time, we would try and work with them. The airport is problematic, and I would ask you to think about it in a way that if you were to schedule a car service to pick you up at 6 o'clock in the evening at the airport, or a taxi, and then showed up at 8 o'clock, would you expect the taxi to be there, or an appointment that you showed up to a couple hours late? And I understand it's challenging. And for those of you that can use Ride Flex, I would encourage you to use Ride Flex to wait until you arrive. I understand it's challenging, but we're not in a position where we can do that type of call for an airport. I'd ask for people to plan in advance. I know it's challenging, but we don't have the capacity to address that type of same day request.
Right, I understand.
But
Thank you,
thank you
Alan.
for sharing that information, and we can have our team look to see if there is a bug or a quirk that would prevent the driver from seeing that. I appreciate that.
I am going to share one more chat message before we move on to the next slide. Linda shares, I tried to attend a training that I registered for and did not see a link to join. I was bummed. Please send out a list of new trainings. I will be there.
Please contact the Mobility Center. They can absolutely help you with setting up an appointment for a new training.
Okay. All right. I think that I covered all of these chat questions. Some of them were answered directly in chat by AJ.
Thank you.
Okay. We have some questions that just came in. Amy shares, a couple questions. One, is the policy that ride drivers will not lift or carry any bags? Is this a change from the past? And is the policy that bags must be in your own personal space new? Are bags never put in the trunk of a car/van?
Great questions. So I did put together, our team put together some clarifications with some questions about the policy. So the number of personal items that can be stored, we have always asked for you to store them in personal space. We have always asked for people to empty and fold their carts for storage. The change has been that the drivers are no longer carrying packages for customers from the door to the vehicle. And that was specifically addressed because there are safety concerns. And again, for the benefit of people that may have joined late or are unfamiliar with the ride, that we have increased incidents of slips, trips, and falls. The initial policy was the driver was supposed to be able to handle a bag while still lending an arm to a customer. What we have found is it's difficult to accommodate both. And separately, I'd like to ask you or share with you that we have a diverse customer population. We also have a diverse driver population. And what I hear from customers is, but a driver told me he'd like to help me, or a driver used to. It's not based on what has been asked and providing the assistance of the arm and carrying baggage, there are some drivers that may have been better equipped to offer both assistance and some that were experiencing challenges. So we did actually have driver injuries as well. And then separately, with respect to impact to service, there were confrontations with customers that had excessive baggage or heavy loads or overflowing loads of bulk items that we really couldn't accommodate. So after reviewing a number of things, the FTA requirements, best practices by a number of agencies of similar size, some of the RTAs, we made the determination that we needed to suspend that aspect. But anybody with packages, I'm sorry, just one other thing, because I think people are joining at a different time. But anybody with packages, anybody can use the lift to board the vehicle. And anybody can travel with a PCA, and the PCA travels for free. And you are also able to bring a guest that can help you as well.
Thanks, Michelle. The last chat question I will share is from Valerie. RideFlex has no phone option and the email address does not provide accessibility. How can Flex be contacted directly?
So I'm unclear about the question. Is it regarding a challenge with the RideFlex program? Or are you talking about conveying a complaint or concern? Because I would ask you, without more information, I would ask you to submit via customer support, and then that would be routed to a team member to address. Is there additional information?
Yes, I just want to show my face when I'm talking. When I call the Flex, and I use both the Ride and the Flex continuously, there is no way to contact the Flex when they overcharge, or if there's a complaint when the driver may see a rollator or a walker and the driver just passes by. The driver goes down the wrong street and doesn't wish to return. Many reasons why the driver with the Flex program does not respond. The biggest concern is that there's no way to communicate with the Flex. And when I call customer service at the MBTA, the email address they give me does not work. It bounces back. So I finally did reach the Flex program, and they only communicate through text. So for 2.5 hours, I was on a text virtual. Finally, I was able to get a real person text, and we were able to get the money that they accidentally charged me for a ride I did not schedule in a place that I did not go to. The baby boomers still prefer talking to real people, people who are alive and not robots. And is there any way that our demographics would have the opportunity to connect with real people in a live conversation as opposed to being reverted to emails and texts? Thank you.
Okay, Valerie, and perhaps there's a team member here, because I'm still not clear on whether were you looking to connect directly with Lyft or Uber, or were you looking to connect with the ride team?
I was looking to connect. The Flex program is offered by Lyft and Uber. My connection is directly with Lyft. I have their app on my phone. Whenever
Okay.
there's a problem, I was told to call the MBTA customer service. MBTA customer service has no direct connection with any of the Flex program providers. The customer service at the MBTA gave me an email address called helplyft.com, which does not connect with anyone. It bounces back. Finally, I went on the Lyft app and I was given an AI communication that took over 2 hours to communicate with because they're not human. And much of their response was, I do not understand. Can you repeat? Can I help you? Finally,
Okay.
after 2 hours, I received a human person in the chat And that was another hour before I was, the monies that they inadvertently took from my account, because again, we have to put our card online, was returned. The process of trying to get complaints addressed is difficult, particularly when AI says, we do not find your complaint to be viable. And because it's not a person, there's no way to communicate the viability of my complaint. So I think there should be a better way to connect with members of the Flex program, either by telephone. I just don't think that AI is able to answer questions that they are not programmed to receive. Thank you.
Valerie, thank you. And I hear you and I hear your frustration and can tell you that I share it as well. I am not able to answer your question. It doesn't look like our Ride Flex expert is on this call right now. But I had mentioned earlier that we are in the process of the RFP process to procure services for our non-dedicated service providers. And we have put a lot of work into how we define those contracts and what our requirements are. And I can, now that I think about it, Kat, you offered a working session with Uber and Lyft some time back. Do you recollect points of contact? I'm not going to put that on you, Kat. You know what?
No, that's okay. Valerie, I'll follow up with you after this meeting. The ASL interpreters just reminded us we have 2 minutes left, or 1 minute now. So I just want to make sure we get to the last slide before we wrap up.
I'm sorry, Valerie, we have not forgotten you, and we will absolutely make sure that you get an answer.
I'll put my email address in the chat.
Great, thank you. So how to stay involved with RTAG, you can contact me at 978-893-8100. You can email RTAG Boston, so RTAG Boston at bostoncil.org. You can also sign up for the RTAG newsletter, which we send out monthly with updates about upcoming meetings and work that we are doing. And you can visit mbta.com/RTAG to learn more. Upcoming meetings and reminders, we have a November RTAG meeting on Wednesday, the 19th. That will be hybrid at the MBTA building, 10 Park Plaza, from 2 p.m. to 4 p.m., and there will be a Zoom option. And like Laura shared earlier, we will have the December Judge King semi-annual settlement meeting from 1 to 3 p.m., and that will be hybrid as well. It looks like we're just at the dot of 7:30, so I just want to thank everyone for coming tonight and sharing your feedback and concerns, and I hope to see you at our upcoming meeting.
Thank you, everybody, for giving up your, I guess it's dinner time tonight. Look forward to seeing you soon, and stay tuned for a spare working session on feedback. Appreciate your input.
Thank you all. Have a good night.